Episode 6 of Season 2, titled Abductions, was the perfect title for this episode, with Lucia being abducted by Alessio, Ethan's mind being abducted by Cameron, Portia being stuck with Jack, and Isabella having Valentina's heart. Things being taken without permission was a common theme amongst all of the characters as we headed into the penultimate episode, with paranoia still at a high but it now being on the other foot, deceitfulness being present in Tanya's arc, and the almighty statue of heads that have been present since episode 1 gaining their focus again. I'm going to recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is the White Lotus Season 2 Episode 6, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. This episode, just like episode 5 of the show, allowed each individual character arc to have the appropriate time necessary in order to develop the plot forward and build to the crescendo of an ending that's soon to be on the horizon. There were multiple revelations that occurred in this episode, so I'm going to break it down by each individual character arc. Ethan and Harper. Ethan and Harper's arc had a real curveball in episode 6. It started with Harper not believing Ethan about the potential cheating that occurred on the night where Harper and Daphne were in Noto, and it finished with Ethan now not believing that Harper didn't cheat on him with his best friend Cameron. A real 180 that changed the dynamic instantly. People often say how you get paranoid when you believe that you've done something wrong, so it does make me wonder if Ethan does feel guilty, even though he didn't cheat on his wife and was honest with her. I'd say we had the realest moment between Harper and Ethan in this episode in a small 90-second conversation that occurred when Ethan mentioned how they didn't lie about anything, but Harper called him out and said how they lie about not being attracted to each other anymore, or at least Ethan not being attracted to Harper. You could really sense the almost abandonment that Harper felt in the marriage that she's in, and that she almost doesn't feel good enough due to the change in lifestyle that they've had, due to Ethan coming into money. It was quite a sad moment to watch, but it did conclude with them both telling each other that they loved one another, which I thought was key. Harper going off with Cameron to the bar when they were at the beach was something that I feel started out as a bit of harmless fun to make Ethan jealous due to her seeing him with Mia and Lucia, but it's now manifested into something completely different. Ethan is now obsessed with it, and he can't get it out of his head, seeing things in reality and now not believing what Harper said, when realistically he should. It's going to be something that takes over their marriage and their final day on their trip in Sicily, and I'm intrigued to see how it's going to end for the pair. I don't believe that anything happened, but I do find it strange that Cameron was touching Harper's leg in the previous episode and has been doing things that would imply that something could be going on. It does also make me wonder if it could lead to Ethan doing something with somebody else, because he can't and maybe won't be able to believe his wife. The sound of the ocean was ever so present when Ethan was near it, and when we were almost inside Ethan's mind. We also had the statue of the heads, Testa de Moro, something that Ethan has been obsessed with the entire time on the trip, now getting a key focus. The head represented the story of a man having an affair with a woman on the island and not making it home from the trip, because the person that he had an affair with killed him. Whilst Ethan has had the main focus on the heads, I don't think that's the case. I think it's Cameron. And there's a tattoo on his leg and a connection to the opening credits that makes me think this. I'll elaborate on this in Cameron's section. Cameron and Daphne. It's known that Cameron and Daphne do not have the most functional relationship in the sense that he does as he pleases. He thinks that Daphne doesn't know, when in reality she does. And it just seems as though she wants to keep her family together. In the opening scene for them in this episode, we saw that Cameron had a tattoo of a bird on his leg. This very bird can be seen in the title sequence inside of a cat's mouth, which has the actress who plays Lucia's name on the side. We've been told that the opening sequence is linked to the show, the characters, and the fate of them. With the bird on Cameron's leg being in the cat's mouth, it does make me wonder if Cameron will be killed due to not giving Lucia the money that she's owed. We know that she's after the money. We know that she's facing pressure from Alessio to get it, and we also know that the Testa de Moro stood for the story of a foreign person going to Sicily, being with a local woman, and then upon finding out that he had a wife and children back home, she killed him. All things that align with Cameron's story, so I very much feel this could be a plausible theory as we enter the season finale. Ethan is now cold with Cameron as he believes that he had some intimate moments with Harper when they went back to the room. So their brotherly relationship is something that will most likely sour extremely quickly as we now head into the final episode of the show. Daphne has been quiet. extremely quiet, so it does make me question her intentions and if she has something planned. Tanya and Quentin. Tanya has had the closing moments in the past 2 episodes, and it's definitely been worth it. Following on from witnessing Quentin and Jack together at the end of episode 5, we saw her start the day being relatively cautious, but then go on to quite literally throw caution to the wind and party the night away and spend the evening with Niccolo. The main thing that Tanya saw was what we all suspected, and that was Greg being the cowboy that was alongside Quentin in a photo frame that she picked up. It does connect the dots and make you think even more about what Quentin's intentions are. Tanya does survive the night, as she's seen in the trailer for next week's episode, but I do hope that it gets addressed. I think this could be to do with Tanya and Greg's marriage. In some instances, there can be an infidelity agreement put in place, whereby if a partner cheats in a marriage where there's a prenup signed, there can be financial penalties, which is what I think could be occurring here. Quentin may not have sinister motives, but more in the sense that a moment of passion and lust could have been orchestrated in order to get financial penalties struck against Tanya, which would essentially mean that Greg could get money upon them getting a divorce. Then Quentin could potentially get some of the money too, or Greg and Quentin will end up together. That's why I believe the final shot of the episode was of Tanya in the bedroom, because it's of such great importance. Portia and Jack. Portia was warned of Jack from the moment that she woke up in the morning of this episode, and I do really wish that Tanya just told her what she caught Jack doing, instead of just saying that she didn't believe Quentin to be his uncle. However, she didn't, and we saw them head out and spend the day and night together, where revelations did start to get made. The main thing that we saw occurring in this arc was that Jack started to let his guard down. He stated how Quentin didn't really have a load of money and he was soon to come into some, most likely whatever's happening between himself and Greg. It very much felt like Jack was tasked with keeping Portia away, as no matter how much she said that she wanted to leave, they couldn't. Plus, with Quentin overlooking them leaving, it seemed like a plan. Jack said that he came from a hole in the past, so it certainly feels as though Quentin has hired him and he's now experiencing this extravagant lifestyle for a short period of time, most likely before Quentin's done with him. I do fear for Portia in the next episode, because she may be viewed as disposable, because she's with Tanya and is the only witness to all that's going on. Albie, Lucia, Dominic and Bert. Well, I now firmly believe that Lucia does have true feelings for Albie, as we saw them down by the sea and she said to him that she wished that all men were like him. However, Alessio following her and Albie's family was the main thing in her arc. Lucia owes Alessio money and she can't escape, and she's clearly struggling with it. The second half of this season has really allowed us to see a different side to Lucia, a more human, emotional side that has made you realize that she doesn't truly want to be living how she does. And Albie has complemented that side to her really nicely. Dominic, Albie and Bert arrived in the small town where they planned on visiting distant relatives, which was the whole reason as to why they came on the trip, and they were ultimately met with a cold, harsh and angry response. This set up what we saw later on in the episode, where we saw Bert express emotions like we've never seen before. He stated how you always think there's going to be a homecoming, but there's not. Not for me anymore. I think this was him coming to terms with the fact that he's getting older, and that he's going to be on his own for the rest of his life. He's been falling over, hurting himself, stating in the past in jest how he's never going to be with somebody again, but going on this trip and visiting the village, and then being turned away, showed him the true reality. It was a sad moment for Bert for sure. Valentina and Mia. Valentina has been infatuated with Isabella for a long while, and us as the viewers perceived her kindness for something else, just like Valentina did too. We got the revelation that Isabella was engaged to Rocco, something that I didn't ever consider. Once Valentina found out, we saw that she cancelled her evening with Isabella because she felt hurt and disappointed that things weren't as they seemed. But Valentina did get something in the end. She ended up having a passionate time with Mia, who's exhibiting more and more behaviours of Lucia from earlier on in the season. If anything, it feels like they've both switched roles, and it's interesting that it's gone that way. I thought this episode was the best of the season so far. I said the same last week, but this one really did top it and connect more clues, but also, whilst doing that, it put more pieces next to the puzzle, meaning we're no closer to knowing who's getting washed up and who else isn't going to make it back. This has fast become one of my favourite shows of the year. The acting, storytelling, symbolism, stylistic edge, and constant thinking that I'm doing is like no other, and I commend it for that. It's an experience. So, There you have it. The White Lotus Season 2 Episode 6 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.